The Valari had been watching the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were a species that had learned the art of hiding better than any other creature in the universe. Their bodies could bend light around them, making them invisible to the naked eye. Their ships used the same technology, floating through space like ghosts that no one could see or touch. Commander Desic stood on the observation deck of her ship. The silent wind. She looked down at the blue and green planet below. The humans called it Earth. It was a beautiful world, full of water and life and noise. So much noise. The humans never stopped talking, never stopped building, never stopped fighting with each other. She had been watching them for 50 years now. Her people had been watching them for almost 200 years. In that time, humans had gone from riding horses to flying machines. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. They were fast learners, these strange creatures. "Commander, they have launched another rocket," said Yenis, her second in command. Yenis was young by Valari standards, only 150 years old. She was eager and curious about everything. Desic made a small sound of acknowledgement. "Where is it going?" "Toward the red planet. Mars, they call it. They want to live there someday." "They are ambitious," Desic admitted, "but they are also violent and chaotic. They will destroy themselves before they ever become a real threat to the galaxy." This was what the Valari believed about most species. They had watched hundreds of civilizations rise and fall over the millennia. The aggressive ones always burned out quickly. They would fight wars, destroy their planets, and fade into nothing. The Valari simply watched and recorded everything for their great archives. They never made contact. They never revealed themselves. This was the first law of the Valari people. Remain hidden. Remain silent. Remain invisible. Far below on Earth, in a building in the city of Houston, a woman named Katie Barnes was staring at her computer screen with a puzzled expression. She was a scientist who studied signals from deep space. Most of her job was boring. She looked at data all day, searching for patterns that might mean something interesting. Today, she had found something strange. "Hey, Danny," she called out to her friend across the room. "Come look at this." Danny Ortiz rolled his chair over to her desk. He was holding a cup of coffee, as he always was. Danny loved coffee more than anything else in the world. He took a sip and looked at her screen. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "You see this dark spot here?" Katie pointed at a section of the data. "It keeps moving, but it is not a planet or an asteroid. It is like something is blocking the background radiation from space. Something big." Danny frowned. He set down his coffee and leaned closer to the screen. "That is weird. Could it be an error in the equipment?" "I checked 3 times. The equipment is fine." "Then what is it?" Katie shook her head slowly. "I do not know. But whatever it is, it should not exist." Neither of them noticed the slight shimmer in the corner of the room. A Valari observer was standing there, completely invisible, listening to every word they said. The observer's name was Kethis, and he had been stationed on Earth for 20 years. His job was to monitor human communications and report anything important back to the fleet. Right now, his 4 hearts were beating very fast. This was nothing, he told himself. Humans had noticed strange things before. They always explained them away eventually. They would say it was a glitch or an error or something normal they had not understood at first, but the woman kept staring at the screen. She kept looking at the data. She was not giving up. Kethis sent an urgent message to Commander Desic aboard the Silent Wind. "Commander, we may have a situation." Up in orbit, Desic received the message with confusion. In all her years of service, she had never received an urgent message from an Earth observer. What could possibly be urgent about watching humans eat their strange foods and argue about their silly politics? She read the report twice. Then she read it a 3rd time. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. Yennis looked up from her station. Commander? Is something wrong? Desik did not answer. She walked to the main viewing window and looked down at Earth. Somewhere on that planet, a human woman with messy hair and tired eyes was looking at data that showed the shadow of a Valari ship. No one had ever seen their shadow before. Not in 3,000 years. It is nothing, Desik finally said. The human probably saw an equipment error. She will forget about it in a few days. But even as she said the words, Desik felt uncertain. She had watched humans long enough to know one thing about them. They were stubborn. When they found something strange, they did not let it go. They picked at it and poked at it and studied it until they understood it. That night, Katie Barnes did not go home. She stayed in her lab, drinking cold coffee and staring at her data. She ran test after test. She checked her equipment again and again. Everything was working correctly. The shadow was real. Something was up there. She pulled out a notebook and started writing down her observations. She did not know what she had found. Maybe it was some kind of natural phenomenon that no one had discovered yet. Maybe it was something else entirely. She thought about all the science fiction movies she had watched as a child. Aliens hiding in space, watching Earth from above. It had always seemed like such a silly idea. Now she was not so sure. If you are up there, she said quietly to the empty room, I am going to find you. In the corner of the room, Kethis, the observer, stood perfectly still. He had heard everything. The woman was not giving up. She was getting closer to the truth, for the first time in his long life. A Valari felt what it was like to be hunted. He did not enjoy the feeling at all. Above the planet, the silent wind continued its slow orbit. Commander Desik tried to focus on her regular duties, but she kept thinking about the human woman and her data. One curious scientist on a small planet should not have mattered, but something told Desik that everything was about to change. She just did not know how right she was. 6 months had passed since Katie Barnes first noticed a strange shadow in her data. In that time, she had become obsessed. She worked late every night. She filled notebook after notebook with calculations and theories. Her friends worried about her. Her boss told her to take a vacation. She refused to stop. The shadow kept appearing. It moved around Earth in patterns that made no sense for any natural object. Sometimes it would stay in one place for days. Then it would suddenly move to the other side of the planet. Whatever it was not random. Something was controlling it. Katie needed help. She could not figure this out alone. So she reached out to a man named Benjamin Cole. Benjamin was a professor at a famous university. He was known for having crazy ideas that sometimes turned out to be true. Other scientists laughed at him, but Katie had read his work. He believed that there could be invisible objects in space, things that bent light around them but still had mass and gravity. When Katie called him and explained what she had found, Benjamin was on a plane within hours. He arrived at her lab looking exactly like his photographs. He was a middle-aged man with messy gray hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He wore an old sweater with holes in the sleeves. He looked like a man who cared more about ideas than appearances. "Show me everything," he said. Katie showed him 6 months of data. She showed him the patterns she had found. She showed him how the shadow moved in ways that could not be explained by any known science. Benjamin studied the information for 3 days without sleeping. He drank more coffee than Danny thought was possible for one human to drink. He wrote equations on every piece of paper he could find. He muttered to himself in the hallways. On the 4th day, he called Katie and Danny into the lab. "I know what it is," he said. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. "Or at least, I know what it might be." "Tell us," Katie said. Benjamin took a deep breath. "It is a ship." An invisible ship. Something is up there watching us, and it has technology that bends light around itself so we cannot see it. But it still has mass. It still creates gravity. And it still casts a shadow when it blocks certain types of radiation. Danny laughed nervously. You are joking, right? You are saying there are invisible aliens floating above our heads? I am saying the math points to that conclusion, Benjamin replied. I am not saying I want to believe it, but the evidence is there. Katie felt her heart beating fast. She had suspected this for months, but hearing someone else say it out loud made it feel real. Terrifyingly real. What do we do? She asked. We build a detector, Benjamin said. Something that can find these shadows more reliably. If we can prove they exist, if we can show the world that something is up there, then everything changes. Far above Earth, the Valari Council was holding an emergency meeting. This had never happened before. In 3,000 years of watching the galaxy, they had never been threatened with discovery. Elder Varix was the oldest member of the council. He was over 2,000 years old, and he had seen empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans are building detection equipment, he announced to the gathered leaders. They cannot see us yet, but they are learning. They are getting closer every day. Commander Desic stood before the council, feeling like a failure. The silent wind had been too careless. They had let themselves be noticed. How is this possible? Demanded one of the council members. Our cloaking has worked perfectly for millennia. What makes these humans different? They are persistent, Desic answered. They do not give up. When they find a puzzle, they solve it. It is how their minds work. Then, we must leave this system, another council member suggested. We must abandon our observation of Earth and never return. And what happens when they develop space travel? Desic asked. They are already sending ships to their neighboring planets. In 100 years, they might reach the stars. Do we run forever? The council fell silent. No one had an answer. On Earth, Benjamin Cole gave a presentation to a room full of scientists. Most of them thought he was crazy. Some of them laughed at his theories. But a few of them looked at his data and started to wonder. After the presentation, a woman in a military uniform approached him. She introduced herself as Colonel Patricia Long from the newly formed Space Defense Division. Dr. Cole, she said quietly, the government would like to fund your research. Whatever you need, whatever it costs, we will provide it. Benjamin stared at her. You believe me? Let us just say that you are not the only one who has noticed strange shadows in the sky. We have been watching them for years. We just did not have anyone smart enough to explain what they were. Within months, Katie, Danny, and Benjamin were moved to a secret facility. They were given unlimited resources and a team of the best scientists in the country. Their mission was simple but impossible. Build a machine that could find invisible aliens. They called it the Ghost Trap Dot. It took 2 years of failures. 2 years of long nights and cold coffee and arguments about physics. 2 years of feeling like they were trying to catch smoke with their bare hands. But humans were stubborn. Humans did not give up. On a cold morning in December, the Ghost Trap came online for the first time. It sent out pulses of energy that could detect the smallest changes in gravity. It analyzed light patterns for the tiniest distortions. It was the most sensitive piece of equipment ever built by human hands. Katie held her breath as the first readings came in. The screen lit up with dozens of contacts. Shadows moving through the space around Earth. Ships that had been invisible for centuries, suddenly revealed. Oh my God, Danny whispered. There are so many of them. Katie smiled for the first time in months. We found them, she said. We actually found them. Somewhere above Earth, Commander Desic felt a cold sensation spread through her body. Every alarm on her ship was screaming. The humans had done it. They could see her. The age of hiding was over. The day the world learned about aliens started like any other Tuesday. Katie Barnes arrived at the secret facility at 7 in the morning, carrying her usual cup of coffee. She was tired. She was always tired these days. But there was too much work to do, too many questions to answer. The ghost trap had revealed the truth. There were ships around Earth, invisible ships that had been watching humanity for who knows how long. But knowing they existed and proving it to the world were two different things. Katie sat down at her desk and started her morning routine. Check the equipment. Review the overnight data. Look for any new contacts. That was when everything went wrong. Every alarm in the building started screaming at once. Red lights flashed on every screen. Danny came running from the other room, still holding a half-eaten sandwich. What is happening? He shouted over the noise. Katie stared at her monitor. Her hands were shaking. Something is right above us. Something huge. It is only 5 kilometers up. The readings were clear. A massive object was hovering directly over their facility. According to the ghost trap, it was at least 200 meters long. It had enough mass to slightly bend the light around it. And it was just sitting there, invisible to the naked eye but completely visible to their equipment. Why would they come so close? Danny asked. They must know we can detect them now. Katie shook her head. I do not think they meant to. Look at these energy readings. Something is wrong with their ship. I think their engines are broken. This was exactly what had happened. Aboard the Silent Wind, Commander Thesek was facing the worst moment of her long career. A power failure had knocked out their main engines at the worst possible time. They were stuck directly above the human facility that had been designed specifically to find them. How long until repairs are complete? Thesek demanded. At least 1 hour, Commander, her engineer reported. His voice was full of fear. Maybe 2. We do not have 2 hours. They know we are here. Yennis was monitoring human communications. Commander, they are calling for military support. Aircraft are being sent to this location. They are bringing cameras and weapons. Thesek felt something she had not felt in centuries. Panic. Real, true panic. The Valari had always been in control. They had always been the ones watching, the ones with all the power. Now they were trapped and helpless, like insects under glass. On the ground, Katie made a decision. She told Danny to keep monitoring the data. Then she grabbed something from her desk drawer and walked outside. Katie, where are you going? Danny called after her. She did not answer. She walked out into the parking lot and looked up at the empty sky. It looked normal, blue with a few white clouds. Nothing special, but she knew something was up there. She had grabbed a high-powered laser pointer from her desk. It was a gift from an old boyfriend, something she had kept for no particular reason. Now she understood why. Katie pointed the laser at the coordinates the ghost trap had given her. She swept the beam across the seemingly empty sky. For just a moment, less than a second, the laser light scattered off something solid. A shape appeared in the sky. It was huge and curved and definitely not from Earth. Then it was gone again, hidden behind its invisible shield. Katie stood frozen in the parking lot. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She had just seen an alien spaceship. She had just made first contact with another species. Her phone was in her hand. She did not remember taking it out, but somehow she had recorded everything. She had proof. Inside the Silent Wind, there was chaos. Yennis was shouting that the humans had seen them. The engineer was screaming that the engines were still not ready. Thesek stood in the middle of it all, watching the small human woman on the surface below. She was so small, so fragile. She had no weapons, no army, no technology that could threaten a Valari ship. She just had a tiny light and the stubborn refusal to accept what she could not see, and she had won. "The engines are online," the engineer finally reported. "Take us up," Desic ordered. "Maximum speed. Get us away from this planet." The silent wind rose through Earth's atmosphere and escaped into the darkness of space. But the damage was done. The video from Katie's phone was already spreading across the internet. Within hours, every person on Earth had seen the ghostly outline of an alien ship. The governments of the world tried to deny it at first. They said it was a hoax, a trick, a mistake. But there was too much evidence. The ghost trap data confirmed everything. Multiple witnesses had seen the same thing. Scientists around the globe analyzed the video and declared it authentic. Humanity was not alone in the universe. They never had been. Something had been watching them for centuries, and now they knew about it. The reaction was mixed. Some people panicked. They bought supplies and built shelters, convinced that an invasion was coming. Others celebrated, dancing in the streets and calling it the greatest discovery in human history. But most people felt something simpler. They felt angry that they had been watched without their knowledge. Angry that something had been studying them like laboratory animals. Angry that these invisible watchers had never bothered to say hello. Colonel Patricia Long called an emergency meeting. Katie, Danny, and Benjamin were brought to a room full of generals and politicians. "Dr. Barnes," the colonel said, "you just changed the world. Now we need to figure out what to do next." Katie looked around the room at all the serious faces. "What you want me to do? We want you to find them again. All of them. Every ship, every observer, every hidden eye in our sky. We want to know who they are, where they come from, and why they have been watching us." Danny leaned over to Katie. "No pressure or anything," he whispered. Katie almost laughed. Then she straightened up and looked the colonel in the eye. "Give me what I need," she said, "and I will find every single one of them. They can hide anywhere in the galaxy, and I will track them down. That is a promise." She meant every word. The hunt was about to begin. 2 years had passed since Katie Barnes proved that invisible aliens were watching Earth. In that time, humanity had changed more than it had in the previous century. Countries that had been enemies started working together. Scientists shared their secrets. Money that used to go to weapons now went to space technology. Humans had found a common enemy, or at least a common mystery. The ghost trap technology was now everywhere. Satellites in orbit carried detection equipment. Ships in the ocean had special sensors. Planes flew constant patrols, scanning the sky for invisible visitors. Earth had become a planet wrapped in a web of watching eyes. The Valari could not get close anymore. Every time they tried to approach, alarms would sound across the globe. Twice, human jets had intercepted their scout ships, forcing them to flee. The silent watchers were now the ones being watched. Commander Desic observed all of this from a safe distance near Jupiter. She had not been back to Earth since that terrible day when the human woman with the laser had revealed her ship. Now she commanded a fleet of observation vessels, all of them staying far beyond the range of human detection. "They learned so fast," Yanis said one day, looking at the latest intelligence reports. "In 2 years, they have developed technology it took us centuries to create." Desic nodded slowly. That has always been their strength. They live such short lives. They cannot afford to be patient. So they push and rush and take risks that we would never take. Is that not dangerous? Very dangerous. For everyone, including themselves. But also very effective. The Valari Council had met many times to discuss the human problem. Some members wanted to reveal themselves and try to make peace. Others wanted to leave the solar system entirely and never return. A few extremists even suggested attacking Earth before the humans became too powerful. This last option was quickly rejected. The Valari had never been a violent species. They were watchers, not warriors. They had no weapons capable of destroying a planet, and they had no desire to develop them, but they were running out of time to decide on Earth. Katie Barnes had been promoted to the position of Director of Alien Detection. She now ran the entire global network of ghost traps. Every sighting, every shadow, every hint of invisible activity came across her desk. She was also helping to design something new. Something that would change everything. It was called the Horizon. It was humanity's first true spaceship, capable of traveling to other planets and beyond. It used technology that humans had invented themselves, mixed with ideas they had reverse-engineered from studying the movements of Volari ships. Captain Samantha Wright had been chosen to command the Horizon. She was a former fighter pilot with nerves of steel and a reputation for staying calm under pressure. She was also one of the few people who had actually seen a Volari ship with her own eyes during one of the interception missions. "Are you ready for this?" Katie asked her the night before the Horizon's first mission. Sam smiled. "I have been ready my whole life. I just did not know what I was waiting for." The mission was simple in theory, but complicated in practice. The Horizon would travel beyond Earth's orbit and try to make contact with the Volari fleet. They would carry messages of peace, but also a warning. Humanity wanted to talk, but humanity was done being watched. The launch was broadcast around the world. Billions of people watched as the Horizon lifted off from the surface and climbed into the dark sky. It was the most beautiful thing Katie had ever seen. Commander Desick watched the launch, too, through long-range sensors. She felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in how far the humans had come. Fear of what they might do next. And underneath it all, a growing respect that she did not fully understand. "They are heading toward us," Yennis reported. "They will reach our position in approximately 3 days." "I know," Desick said. "Contact the Council. Tell them the time for decisions has ended. The humans are coming, whether we are ready or not." For 3 days, the Horizon traveled through the empty space between planets. Sam kept her crew busy with drills and preparations. They had no idea what to expect when they finally met the aliens who had been watching humanity for so long. On the 3rd day, they arrived at the coordinates where the Volari fleet was hiding. "Captain," her sensor officer reported, "I am detecting multiple contacts. At least 15 ships. They are cloaked, but we can see their gravity signatures clearly." Sam nodded. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies." She took a deep breath and spoke the words that humanity had been waiting to say for 2 years. "Volari vessels, this is Captain Wright of the Earthship Horizon. We know you are there. We can see you. We have come to talk, not to fight. But understand this clearly. The days of you watching us in secret are over. Show yourselves, or we will find ways to make you show yourselves." There was a long silence. Sam waited, keeping her expression calm even as her heart pounded in her chest. Then, slowly, one by one, the Volari ships began to decloak. They appeared out of nothing. Huge curved vessels that glowed with soft light. There were 20 of them in total, far more than the sensors had detected. They surrounded the tiny Earthship like giants looking down at an ant. But Sam did not feel like an ant. She felt like a human. And humans, she knew, had a way of surprising everyone. A communication came through. A voice, translated by computer, spoke in calm tones. "Captain Wright, I am Commander Desick of the Volari fleet. We accept your request for communication. We are prepared to reveal ourselves and answer your questions." Sam allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Then let us begin." Behind her, her crew quietly celebrated. They had done it. They had forced the invisible watchers to come out of the shadows. But Sam knew this was just the beginning. There were harder conversations ahead. There were answers to demand and apologies to receive. There were treaties to negotiate and trust to build. It would take years, maybe decades, maybe longer. But for the first time in human history, they would face the universe with their eyes wide open. No more shadows. No more secrets. No more hiding. The hunt was over. The future was about to begin. 10 years had passed since humanity first made contact with the Valari. In that time, the galaxy had become a very different place. The treaty between Earth and the Valari homeworld had changed everything. The Valari shared their knowledge of the universe. They told humans about the thousands of species scattered across the stars. They shared maps of trade routes and warnings about dangerous regions. Most importantly, they shared the truth. The Valari were not the only ones who had been watching Earth. There were dozens of invisible species in the galaxy. Some had been observing humanity for centuries. Others had only recently discovered the noisy little planet filled with strange, stubborn creatures. All of them had believed themselves to be perfectly hidden. They were wrong. Katie Barnes was now the director of the Galactic Monitoring Agency, a new organization created by the United Governments of Earth. Her job was to find every hidden watcher in human space and make them reveal themselves. She was very good at her job. The ghost trap technology had evolved far beyond its original design. Now, there were networks of satellites spread throughout the solar system. Detection stations had been built on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Humanity could see invisible ships from billions of kilometers away. One by one, the hidden watchers were found. The Torthic were discovered hiding near Saturn. The Vests were caught observing a Mayan colony on an asteroid. The Gallan were tracked to a secret base on one of Neptune's moons. Each time, they were given a simple choice: reveal yourselves and follow the new rules, or face the consequences. Most chose to reveal themselves. The few that did not learn hard lessons about human determination. Captain Sam Wright commanded the second generation of Earth's space fleet. The Horizon had been retired to a museum, replaced by faster and more powerful ships. Sam now led the patrol vessel Dawn, hunting for invisible intruders across the solar system. Today, she was chasing 3 Torthak ships that had been caught spying on a human colony. They are running toward the outer rim, her sensor officer reported. Fast ships. Faster than ours. Sam studied the tactical display. The Torthic vessels were trying to escape beyond the range of human territory. If they made it, the Earth fleet would not be allowed to follow them without causing a diplomatic incident. Launch the probes, Sam ordered. Small drones shot out from the Dawn, spreading across the space ahead. Each one carried miniature ghost trap technology, designed to track invisible ships no matter where they ran. The Torthic could not escape. Their cloaking was useless against the probes. Every movement they made was tracked and recorded. Torthic vessels. Sam broadcast on all channels. This is Captain Wright. You are in violation of the Galactic Observation Agreement. Decelerate and prepare to be escorted back to human space. You have 30 seconds to comply. There was no response at first. The Torthic ships kept running. Sam waited. She had done this many times before. They always ran at first. They always thought they could escape. And they were always wrong. After 20 seconds, the Torthic ships began to slow down. Their cloaking dropped, revealing 3 silver vessels that looked like long needles floating in the dark. Earth vessel, came a translated voice. We surrender. Please do not shoot. Sam smiled slightly. We are not going to shoot anyone. But you are going to explain why you were watching our colony without permission. And then you are going to leave human space and not come back without proper authorization. The Torthic agreed to everything. They always did. Back on Earth, Katie watched the intercept on her office screen. Danny Ortiz sat across from her, older now with gray in his hair, but still drinking too much coffee. "That makes 15 species this year," he said. 15 different groups that thought they could spy on us without getting caught. Katie nodded. "And 15 that learned otherwise." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the skyline of the city, full of buildings and flying vehicles, and people going about their lives. Somewhere above them, invisible to the naked eye but not to human technology, satellites were watching the stars. "Do you ever think about the old days?" Danny asked. "Before we knew about any of this?" "Sometimes," Katie admitted. "We were so small then. We thought we were alone. We had no idea that entire civilizations were watching us like entertainment. And now?" Katie turned back to face him. She was older too, with lines on her face and gray in her own hair. But her eyes were still sharp, still curious, still ready for whatever came next. "Now we are the ones doing the watching," she said. "And we do not hide from anyone." Far away, in a diplomatic transport ship traveling between star systems, Ambassador Desic was thinking about the same thing. She had spent 10 years working with humans, learning their ways, understanding their strange minds. She had been frightened of them at first. Now she felt something closer to admiration. The Valari had hidden for 3,000 years, because they feared what other species might do if they were discovered. They believed that staying invisible was the only way to stay safe. The humans had proven them wrong. Humans did not hide from their problems. They faced them directly, loudly, sometimes violently. They made enemies, but they also made friends. They broke things, but they also built things. They were chaos wrapped in determination, wrapped in hope. Desic remembered the night when everything changed. A small human woman in a packing lot, pointing a tiny light at the sky. Such a simple act. Such enormous consequences. That woman had refused to accept that anything could stay hidden from her. And because of that stubbornness, that impossible human refusal to give up, the galaxy would never be the same. On Earth, Katie Barnes finished her coffee and prepared for another day of work. There were reports to review, sightings to analyze, hidden watchers to find. She thought about Benjamin Cole, who had died 5 years ago, never seeing how far his theories had taken humanity. She thought about the Valari and the Torthek and all the other species that had learned to respect human persistence. Mostly she thought about the darkness between the stars, the emptiness that was not really empty, the shadows that were not really shadows. "We see you," she whispered to no one in particular. "We will always see you now." And somewhere in the void, hidden eyes watched Earth with new caution. They had learned the lesson that the Valari had learned long ago. You cannot hide from humans. You cannot escape their curiosity. If you try to stay in the shadows, they will build lights bright enough to reveal you, and then they will come for answers. That was the human way. That was what made them dangerous. That was what made them special. The Watchers had become the watched. The universe would never be the same